Okay, it is now 6:32 p.m. on Thursday, January the 3rd, 2013. And I'm calling the Select Board of the Town of Newfane to order. The first order of business is the approval of the minutes of the December 20th meeting. Has everyone had an opportunity to take a look at them? Mm-hmm. Is there a motion to accept the minutes?
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any additions or corrections or discussion of the minutes?
Nobody else does, I do.
Go ahead.
Page 2, under mitigation, Dover Road property. Maybe we just need to separate it out. The very last sentence, it says Gloria will spearhead the flood insurance project. That's for the hazardous mitigation plan that we have to renew for us. So, right under mitigation.
No, it's really the hazard mitigation plan.
Right. And
for
so,
the purpose of flood insurance, is that correct?
We have to have that in place as one of the, to be able to get the hazardous mitigation grants that we do. So I think that should be separated out from mitigation Dover Road property and just the hazardous mitigation plan. I mean, mitigation fits in, but that doesn't have anything necessarily to do with Dover Road.
Oh, I see what you're saying. It has nothing to, I've got you.
How would you word it?
Maybe just put mitigation and then put Dover Road down and then say hazardous mitigation plan that Gloria will spearhead.
Yeah, I think if you just break it, if you have mitigation Dover Road property, Pat. Now, if you just before the last sentence in that thing, if you put a new subhead that has mitigation
Hazardous
planning.
mitigation plan.
That will clarify.
Okay. And so then taking out flood insurance project, hazardous mitigation, I'm not positive what in the requirements for property owners. I think that could just go out. And then it's Dinah Reed, D-I-N-A-H, who's with the Wyndham Regional Planning.
Okay, let me make sure that gets that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the second one on that page, I was somewhat concerned that we've put Merle in an untenable, uncomfortable position. So under the Golden Wood Road property issues, I think we have to, he didn't make a firm statement because he hasn't been there to inspect.
I see.
So, you know, something to the effect that purportedly or... Yeah.
Well, it does say may.
No, there has been 4 families living.
Oh, I see. You're saying that. I see.
That
he didn't. You're right. He was going to go take a look.
And somebody reported that to him, but that's sort of the conjecture.
I understand.
Yeah. So legally, I think we need to.
So Merle Tessier reported that he has been told.
Yeah, that there are 4 families living on the property.
So if you just add, he has been told that there are 4 families living on the property. And
Yeah,
I do believe we asked Merle to check that out.
Yes, we did.
And so you could add a line saying that we asked Merle, the board asked, Select Board asked Merle to please, visit the
Didn't
location?
we say that Tim Schaefer had to be involved first?
No, No, we separated the two. What we said was that Merle should check it out. This is my recollection. I mean,
Okay.
others could. Is that Merle should go there and check it out vis-a-vis is there a zoning violation or not, and that he should leave the health officer health issues to Tim, and that Tim should check that out. And just for not for
that's
the minutes,
yeah.
I have talked to Tim, and he said he would take care of that.
Okay. And I've talked to Merle about that. That's another story, I think.
Anything further? Hearing none, do we have do we accept the minutes as read, what's the word?
Amended.
Amended, that's the word I'm looking for. All those in favor of accepting the minutes as amended?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously.
I abstained.
And Todd abstained from general principles. And the fact that he wasn't here. Okay, the next order of business is the road foreman, road commissioners report. Todd?
Yep. The roads are in pretty good shape, except for the very last part of South Ward Road up by the town line where it's got a lot of ruts in it from, we started having mud season and it's froze up now, but not much we can do with that until it thaws out again. The 09 Sterling, one we've had so much trouble with, didn't make it through the last storm, and we put it back to Patriot again. Apparently they put it was a defective EGR cooler, so they replaced that again. But I got in touch with McDivitt, truck company who owns Manchester Mac and they own Patriot, and got a hold of Bucky Gagnon, the guy that we bought the salesman we bought the Mac to, and they're going to investigate this for us to see if they can come up with some sort of a solution for this truck. It's been a nightmare since we owned it, so I told them I'd like to see put another engine in it, so they're going to check in to see if they can do something for us. The 2013 Mac, the one that got in the accident, is back. They did a four-wheel alignment on it and straightened the front bumper and realigned the PTO pump, and everything seems to be fine.
So there wasn't
No
axle
no
problem,
frame
or
damage, no front end damage, so
Good.
we got lucky. The box culvert that we've been talking about, so along in Baker Brook, that work is done. It should be okay until we decide to replace it. River Road Bridge project, the one where the embankment fell off away from the bridge, is done. The second bridge at Hunter Brook has a problem again. Angle iron at the expansion joint came loose because the concrete on the abutment's all rotted, so there's nothing to hold it there. And the plow caught it while they were plowing, and it was sticking up, so I ended up having to get Renault brothers up there today to cut it off and do some work on it for us. We're going to do some more work on it tomorrow, I think. And as far as the sand salt goes, we've used quite a bit of both due to all the storms, but so far we're still pretty good shape for the sand. But if we have too many more storms, we'll have to buy some more sand.
Okay, do we have a motion to accept the road foreman, road commissioners report?
So moved. Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none?
This nothing to do with that, but
There is
tied in with tied in with the sand and salt. Somebody came in today. I asked him to come in and see Pat. I don't think he did. Question about not getting sand on Stratton Hill Road, particularly at the bottom.
Stratton Hill Road's right down the dirt. I was just up it today. Stratton Hill Road's really good. I was up there. I made a point to go up there today.
And I said to this person, you need to write it out and bring it in, but just.
There's a car parked down there every storm, but it's a little car with summer tires on it. I don't know if those are the people or not. But
All right, well, until we hear something.
I'll check into it again. But
Yeah,
I
just-
drove there this morning and it was fine.
Yeah, there was some concern about that, so.
I think since it came up, Priscilla, I don't know if you want to mention the thing that you were talking, that you had mentioned to me about the Oak Hill, there being potentially the roadblock there, or do you want to not just leave that between
Well, what I said was that when I went up to look, when the balloon test was done, the address of where it was going to be was whatever it is, Oak Hill Road. So you drive up Parish Hill and you turn right onto Oak Hill Road, and 100 yards or more up, there's across the road there's a split rail fence just ending the road, and then on the other side the road continues. And so in order to get to that address, I went up to Miller Road
Yeah.
and went up Miller Road, and that's how I found my way there. But
So-
I just thought, it's not, as far as,
Your Honor might be able to speak to that right here.
Do you know anything about that?
Yes, I do. It used to be one complete association way back in the day, 20 years ago, and before that. What had happened was Miller Lane and Oak Hill split because of some people weren't paying their fair share of road fees that we have every year. Miller Lane has been fine ever since. Oak Hill hasn't. They've been feuding back and forth. Some have been paying, some haven't been paying. And finally, Bill Stats said, the heck with you guys down that end of the road. We're not associating with you anymore. And he cut in a road. The road got overgrown over the years. There used to be a road connecting the two.
But it's all a private road.
It's all private road, and
We don't plow it in any way.
And so they were fighting again up there, so he revitalized that
Okay.
road again and then put a split rail fence so that the people on the lower part of Oak Hill Road couldn't access it through.
Is there any way that you guys come up with some 911 numbers for the houses and which way the fire department is supposed to go and get there?
Yeah, that's what
I have no idea what they did at all.
So who would we get a hold of? Bill Stats or
Excuse me?
who would we get a hold of to get that straightened out? Because if we had somebody that looked like a heart attack or something like that
Oh, yeah.
in the wrong way, then you got to turn
That could
around
be
and
a
go back the other
problem.
way.
Oh, that's right.
Or if you have a house fire or something like that.
I'd like to think
stack
that
a
would
whole
just
bunch
go
of fire.
right over that fence.
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
really,
but-
he lives on Miller Road. He doesn't live on Oak Hill.
So the point is, I mean, I guess it's a matter of
That's
if you could, yeah.
Because he's 911 coordinator in Merrill.
Oh, okay. So therefore, Pat, could I ask you to ask Merle to look into this limiting his concern, that it's specifically about the 911 numbers so that we don't have emergency vehicles going the wrong way in the case of an emergency.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, I believe that we have not yet approved the report, is that correct? Correct. Is there any further discussion? Now, hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the Foreman Road Commissioner's report signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next order of business is, there are no scheduled members of the public. The next is unscheduled members of the public. Are there any members of the public who would wish to speak on, and again reminding you that this is on subjects not already on the agenda. So cell towers, for example, we will be discussing as agenda items. But are there any new items? Yes.
It's not a new item. but
Could you just identify yourself?
I'm sorry, I'm Gerald Julian Cisse from South Newfane. And in looking at the agenda, I was wondering, under correspondence, it shows the AT&T application and materials, and since that's very relevant to the cell tower discussion, is there any way that could somehow be moved to follow or be included in that?
We will include it as part of the
Because
cell
it being
tower.
at 6:40
Although,
for the discussion and the correspondence is
understood.
another hour
But
and a
in
half.
fact, but just so you know, this is what it is. We're not going to read this aloud.
I didn't imagine that you would.
Unless it
but
were a
comments.
filibuster and we're trying to...
But there'd be
But
comments.
the fact that we've received it and that it is available, we will discuss when we come immediately, if there are no other unscheduled members of the public, to the cell towers. Now, there are, just so we know, there's really two parts to this. There is the cell tower, the AT&T proposal, and there is the VTEL proposal. We'll address them one at a time, starting with the AT&T proposal. And with regard to the AT&T proposal, let me actually start with the mention that Gerald Julian mentioned, which is we have received the official filing from AT&T. You may recall we had asked AT&T that they delay the filing so that we would be sure that we could get an independent consultant's report from if that were performed by the state, or we actually asked that it be paid for by us, paid for by AT&T, and that we be supervising it. They declined that. They said that they were open to considering locating it further from the road. I personally cannot tell by looking at this whether they did that. They did follow one recommendation, just by my quick perusal of this, one recommendation of Wyndham Regional, in that they are now proposing a monopine design, one of those fake trees, as opposed to a monopole. But that's otherwise, it appears to be the same proposal, but I'm really just received it today. I've certainly not reviewed it. It will be available in the town offices here through the Select Board Administrative Assistant.
The tape recorder's under that book.
No, thank you. Well, I don't want anybody here. And it will be accessible. Now, the other thing that, just to be clear of what we are doing here, is that because this has been filed in the time as allowed by law, once AT&T submitted their notification back in, I guess it was early November, they're required for, that's 45 days they have to wait before they file to the PSB. They waited the minimum, or roughly the minimum amount of time, and filed on December 20th. That begins the clock for the 21-day comment period. So anyone, including the Select Board, who wishes to make any comment to the PSB has 21 days from December 20th, it's now January 3rd, just so it has roughly a week from today, to file anything they may wish to file with the PSB. In that regard, I have drafted a potential, and I say potential because it is purely up to the full Select Board and not at all up to me personally, a potential filing by our Select Board to the PSB in terms of expressing, because AT&T, not because AT&T, but AT&T has, in fact, asked us for our recommendation with regard to the filing. And we're under no obligation to either, quote, recommend or deny, but we do have standing with the Public Service Board, and per the Vermont Telecommunications Authority spokesperson who has been here a couple of times, the PSB does at least attend to, they are not in any way obligated to do what we ask, but they do at least attend to what select boards and the municipal authority said. So I distributed that, an initial letter yesterday, and then a somewhat revised version of it today to the members of the select board, just so they could get a look at it. I'm going to read it aloud so that anybody can hear what it is, and then it will be up to the select board whether to A, send it as written, B, modify it, C, write a whole new letter, D, write nothing. That is completely the prerogative of this board, and I just wanted to give us something as a kind of starting point for discussion, and I will read it aloud so that the town and any other interested parties could hear this particular draft, and then we'll discuss it. This letter is the Select Board of the Town of Newfane's official communication to the Vermont Public Service Board in response to AT&T's request for a certificate of public good for the construction of a cell tower at 66 Oak Hill, South Newfane. The Town of Newfane understands that the intent of the 248A application process is to expedite the permitting process while maintaining the significance of municipal input. The Select Board has held several well-publicized and well-attended public meetings to obtain residents' reactions to the AT&T proposal. As noted I'm sorry, I'm going to pause for 1 second because I have slight modification. As noted on the AT&T request, the application is as noted on the AT&T request, that is, they've noted it themselves, the application is in conflict with the Town of Newfane's wireless communications ordinance duly ratified in 2007. The height of the tower is 73 feet above tree line rather than the 20 feet allowable under the ordinance. A second point of conflict is distance from adjoining properties. AT&T has shown some willingness to negotiate on this point, and let it be said that I cannot tell, looking at this document, whether they have in fact moved it or not. The ordinance also requires that there be not be adverse effects on scenic views. Several residents whose property is in close proximity to the proposed location vehemently oppose it. Residents in the area who oppose the tower express the view that it will reduce their property values, make resale of their homes more difficult, have unpredictable long-term health effects, disrupt scenic views, and present unacceptable levels of noise pollution during generator opposition for periodic testing and during power failures.
You didn't mean opposition, did you? You meant
Operation.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, during generator operation. Many residents have objected that AT&T has not exercised sufficient due diligence in seeking alternative locations that are not in close proximity to multiple dwellings. They object to AT&T's insistence that the only alternate sites to be considered are those within a 0.5 radius of their proposed site. These residents stressed that the site 1.8 miles from the originally proposed site, but with no suitable surrounding homes, was not evaluated by AT&T. Many residents, including several near the proposed site, have expressed strong support for the AT&T project. In addition to convenience and potential business advantages of being able to use cell phones in their homes and cars, they've repeatedly stressed the importance of cell phone accessibility but it's in emergency situations, plural. Even those who oppose the specific location of the tower have spoken in support of cell coverage in general. The Town of Newfane's Conservation Committee initially opposed the building of the tower in the proposed location because of its potential visibility from the town's dedicated trails and lookout points in the absence of a well-warned balloon test. After this objection was raised, AT&T performed a better warned balloon test. The Conservation Committee observed the test and was sufficiently satisfied that scenic views were not affected and rescinded its objection to the location of the tower. The Town of Newfane requested that AT&T cover the costs of an independent consultant under the town's supervision. AT&T counter-proposed the use of the state's agency to hire a consultant at that is at AT&T expense. And I'm just going to change that to AT&T. Okay. Two problems are associated with this counter-proposal. The state agency, per conference call with James Porter, Director of Telecommunications, considers in absolute terms whether a given facility causes undue aesthetic impact. It specifically does not cover a relative evaluation of alternative sites that attempts to balance impact to neighboring homes with propagation. Propagation means, in case anybody's unfamiliar with the term, how wide and where it reaches. Though AT&T stated they would ensure that the Town of Newfane would be given adequate time to review the state consultant report, Mr. Porter, that's the Director of Telecommunications for the state, clarified that only the PSB itself can extend the 21-day comment period at its own discretion. We therefore asked AT&T to withhold the application until timing could be scheduled such that the Town of Newfane would be able to have time to review the consultant's report and respond within the 21-day time frame. AT&T rejected this request. The Town of Newfane therefore makes the following request of the PSB. Ensure that due consideration is given to sites outside the .5 radius from the proposed site, either by A, directing AT&T to pay for an independent consultant under the Town of Newfane supervision, or B, by directing James Porter's independent consultants to balance optimal propagation against minimal neighborhood disruption in its considerations. The Town of Newfane also requests an extension of the 21-day comment period enough to ensure that the Select Board has time to consider the independent consultant's finding in making its recommendation. The Select Board of the Town of Newfane strongly supports increasing cell coverage in our area. We are requesting that the PSP ensure that the means of providing this coverage optimally balances propagation with homeowner concerns. We are hoping for a solution that will satisfy AT&T's need for a cost-effective solution and the Town of Newfane's need to enhance cell coverage without undue hardship to homeowners. Thank you for your consideration. Okay, so that's the draft. And I did receive some, we can't discuss things as a select board by email. Someone can send it directly to me, but we can't discuss it. Just to say, there was, Priscilla did send me a couple minor, I would say minor changes that are in accord with what I said, but she did add a paragraph which is about the adverse effect. Following the ordinance also requires not have adverse effects on scenic views. She proposed adding the sentence, the proposed AT&T tower site is at the end of a narrow private road within a private development made up of 20 houses on 2-acre lots. Upon purchasing the lots of the Oak Hill development, the buyers are required to sign various covenants which are part of their deed and are to regulate the use of their property to prevent any perceived adverse impact on the aesthetics of the development. Several of these owners are infuriated because the developer has agreed to lease his own property within the development to AT&T. That's an addition that is proposed. I'll just complete this so that we have all of that input. I had written in the a couple paragraphs down how others who have supported the site, and I wrote, even those who have opposed the site to the specific closure has spoken in support of cell coverage in general. Priscilla has suggested that that be changed to some of those who oppose the specific location have spoken in support of cell service in general. And the final change that I received from Priscilla was this paragraph about the Conservation Committee. She is somewhat edited to just, I think, just be more concise. It now says, the Town of Newfane's Conservation Committee initially raised an objection to the proposed location because of its potential visibility from the town's dedicated trails and lookout points. After observing the balloon test, the Conservation Committee was sufficiently satisfied that the town's scenic views were not affected and rescinded its objection to the location of the tower.
And it's really a commission, not a committee?
It's a commission, okay.
Am I right on that?
Okay, in both cases.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's what we have before us. I now open this to discussion, but before opening it to discussion, I want to warn everyone, I have a Christmas present, which I could use at any time. It's an emergency clown nose.
He's reverting to childhood.
So if anybody gets too serious about this, the emergency clown nose goes on, and you're all in trouble. Okay. Room for you. Yes. If anybody has any in at the retreat, I'd really suggest reserving a room for me now. Okay.
We'll get Jim.
I open it for discussion.
Just one little picky thing that I'm well known for. You say a 0.5 radius.
Yes.
You mean a 0.5 mile
Okay,
radius.
did I leave out the word where is
In
that?
both places.
Both places? Okay, that's a good, very helpful. Where, if you could,
Yeah,
here we is.
yeah.
I found one of them.
Yeah, and then it's It was later on.
Yes, I did say it twice. Well, at least if you're going to make a mistake, I always feel any mistake worth making once is worth making many times. Are there other discussion points?
Just another thing is that there is also, and I don't know if this fits into the ordinance, I think it does, that it's as far as I know, the tower site is within the setback.
Yeah, that was the I did mention there are two, that was the second objection.
And that they were...
And AT&T had said I don't know whether Wyndham, it was in their response to Wyndham Regional, exactly where they said it, but they said they were open to considering moving it a greater setback. I don't know whether...
They actually said it here at a meeting. 200
They said it here, and I don't remember I don't know, that's what I was saying, I don't know whether they actually did that or not.
I think it should be something that...
I think we should mention it.
I did mention it, but I didn't, could reinforce
at
that.
a quick glance at the site map, it doesn't look like that.
Okay.
Unless, I don't know, I didn't have scale it.
I can't tell.
Yeah.
I can't tell, but I could just say this is an important consideration from the perspective of the town. I could add that, because I already said that in the paragraph, just going to that paragraph, let's see, where I said the two things.
Is it the second paragraph?
Yeah, I'm looking for it.
On which page?
Rather early on.
It's rather early, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it?
It's in conflict. The second point of conflict is distance from adjoining properties. AT&T shown willingness to negotiate on this point. If I could simply add, this is an important consideration for the town of Newfane.
I wonder if it could be firmer and just say AT&T said that could be done. I don't think they didn't appear to be as wishy-washy
All right. So then
to negotiate that it could be done.
Has said they could do this, and
That's my memory of it. But.
I don't know who the adjoining property is. The abutter there.
they could meet this requirement.
Yeah, and we would encourage them to do
This
so.
requirement.
I don't even know the...
And this would be
So Priscilla,
beneficial
she said
from
it's
the town's perspective.
somebody from Virginia who owns the abutting.
Okay.
The town's perspective. The line I wrote was, AT&T said they could meet this requirement, and the town of Newfane considers this. I didn't quite word. The town of Newfane would wish,
Distance from adjoining property.
recommends this change.
If this goes in at that site.
Yeah, I mean, it's within that paragraph.
I have a question about this level of detail in this way. By that level of detail, it is as if the board as a whole is acting on behalf of maybe some of these issues, which we might not have all of the issues, but that issue there on setback is referred to an adjoining property owner, and those owners, as I understand it, have been notified by AT&T by the look of that presentation. Is that accurate?
I only know one of the abutters, and the other two have land, but they don't live around here. I don't even know them.
It's undeveloped.
See, the way I understand this is that the board as a whole has to act on behalf of the entire town. And we don't have, the permit process isn't coming to us to act. So one of my concerns is that if we get in and we start writing, this level of detail as if the board is putting weight behind that detail, and we then start missing, somebody comes up and says, well, you forgot to mention my concern and my other concern, that worries me, because essentially the way this process is through the state, the legislators set up the mechanism for these permits to go before the PSB. For a number of years, there's been a push for the cell phone coverage to come in here, and now the weight of federal dollars is coming behind that, and they're saying, here you go, okay? So having that for an issue, the permit is going up to the PSB. I think the board at numerous meetings has said to every one of you, and hopefully the public has heard this, that's where the hearing process is, and that's where the weight of all of this needs to go. But my concern is, as a board, we have to be able to let them know we have a lot of people within the town who are saying, yeah, we want cell phone coverage. And it's not in their backyard, so, you know, they're expecting us to hit on this side. My concern is if we get too detailed on the other side, those are areas where the abutting landowner and various concerns, maybe health issues, if that's something that that's where those got to go direct to the Public Service Board. And that's just my feeling, because that's the place where it's being brought out, if that's making any sense.
Chris, I only brought up the other part about the setback because I think that there are two issues that are being not, there are only two as far as the ordinance
The
goes.
ordinance, yeah.
And so I was only bringing it up as far as specifically the height and the setback. And I guess I feel like it's our, even though we're being bypassed in the process, essentially,
That's
I feel that
right.
it's still up to us to say what we are noticing and that, you know,
That it may not meet the setbacks.
yeah.
Well, it definitely does not. I mean, AT&T says it's one of the AT&T in their
Correct.
So that was
filing.
the, I'm not, I don't think
it doesn't
that,
meet
I
the
guess
setback.
I think that there aren't other issues, if that's what you're alluding to, that, you know, being specific or
I just
something.
want to, I think that the board
This-
needs
I
to be
think it's
clear
a
with the
short
public,
letter.
too, where we stand in terms of, you know, we don't have a permit before us. If we did, it would get denied, because it doesn't meet the ordinance that's in effect in this town. So this whole issue is going into a different venue, and we're getting hit from two sides. Those people that are saying, yes, we want cell phone coverage. The state's been pushing this for 5 or 6 years against the concerns that rightly you have. And I sort of feel like the weight of this letter is, yeah, overall, Newfane wants cell phone coverage. And I'm beseeching those property owners to make sure that they understand the process that they need to get into to voice their concerns to the Public Service Board within this time frame. And that's really what I want to get out there.
That's very important.
And we're about
Now, the question, let me just
2
come
weeks out
back
of
to
3.
a question of the letter per se. Would you be more comfortable if we did not go into this further, just that it left it at a second point of is the distance and their willingness to negotiate, or would you know, or do you care one way or the other?
I would have simplified it personally and said this does not meet the town's zoning
Okay.
ordinance in
Yeah.
2 manners, the height
That's what
and
it says.
the
That's what it
setback,
says.
right there,
That's what
boom.
it says. Okay.
Does Newfane have a...
And then we could leave out AT&T has shown some willingness to go, just leave that out of it. It just
You know,
has-
let the Public Service Board ask them.
Okay. I'm okay. I personally am okay with it either way.
Okay.
We can decide by vote whether to include certain pieces
I
or
would
not.
like you to leave in the part about
We can vote.
them being
Okay.
willing to leave it,
Okay.
negotiate.
I'm not trying to rule
You know,
by
might start a
from the
conversation.
chair.
Okay.
I'm just saying that's a decision we'll need to make. Are there other pieces of the letter? The way I see this is we should probably decide on the pieces, and then having decided on the pieces, we should vote on the letter as a whole. Because it is possible that any one or several or all may say we shouldn't send the letter altogether. And that's all right. All right, so are there other, let me go through the additions, the specifics that Priscilla gave just as a first step in that. Do we feel, what does people's feel, because I think we should vote separately on whatever issues anybody brings up. So Priscilla brought up this one about adding a paragraph about the specific site location and the development and the feelings about the developer.
I was actually pleased that you didn't put anything that was directed at the developer in your initial one. I think we could add that they had very stringent covenants that they had to obey, but leave out the very last part of it, which was, and now he's, I mean, I know that it's true.
It is true.
But yeah, it's true. I just,
I think,
Anyway,
I
that's
hear
just
your
my-
point.
that's just my feeling.
I wonder how you would feel, Priscilla, if we just removed the several of, I'm not saying we're doing,
No, just-
we haven't voted yet.
Right.
We'll still vote on it separately, just so
This is
everybody
Priscilla's.
understands. But if we remove the several of the owners that are infuriated with the developer, and that's something they really could do individually as opposed to the select board reporting it. If you don't, we'll vote on it separately, if you will.
I understand that it's a detail that I guess the point to me is that that I guess I'd like the Public Service Board to be aware that the person who created these covenants is not requiring these people to, of course they
No,
don't.
but understand, Priscilla, we're only talking about removing the last sentence.
I know.
Not the whole of the thing.
I know. I guess
Okay.
I'm just
All right, well, we can vote
completing
on
the
it.
story.
Okay,
I don't-
all right,
No,
so
that's a good
let's
way of looking.
discuss it. I have a way to think about voting on this, okay? The next one is whether we say even those or some of, which is another point we can vote on separately. And the last, I think that frankly, I would be just as happy with your paragraph, Priscilla, about I think we don't have to go into the I think I was...
Just shortened it.
Yeah, just shortened.
Yes.
So
I said the
that's
same
just
thing.
a simple
right,
clarification, so I don't
Yeah.
think it's still part of the whole.
because it gives,
Are there other portions of the letter that either members of the board would wish to change, add, or subtract, independent of whether we should send the whole letter or not? All right, hearing none, then I want to go to vote on the specifics.
I mean,
The public can discuss, but we'd certainly like to hear, particularly if you have new input, yes.
So is this the time?
Yes,
I don't wanna
this would
wait
be a
till you take
useful
your vote.
time because we're about to go to a vote.
Okay, 'cause
so
that's what
yes,
I wanted.
it would
I didn't want to be
a-
rude to interject.
Definitely would be appropriate.
Okay, great. Okay, so again, I'm Jerry.
I won't wear the clown nose, I promise.
Okay, great. So first of all, thank you. I think it was a very well written and very thoughtful letter. I think you really captured the sentiment of the people that I heard, both in this room as well as out in the neighborhoods, and my own personal feelings. And I do appreciate what Priscilla had to say because it is the truth. And in fairness, the Public Service Board should know. And so first and foremost, thank you. Subsequent to some of our meetings here, and I know it will be coming into discussions as well, the next piece about Vermont Retail and their grant, I guess I'm curious to find out, so whether or not it applies writing to the Public Service Board, is there something do we have to go with AT&T on this? Is there any reason why we wouldn't see what VTEL might be able to do in the situation? I know that in reading what the woman Karen
Marshall.
is, okay, I've heard her on the radio as well as I've read in the newspaper her own comments saying that the best thing for the best cell service is a consistency in provider service, and that having multiple carriers does interfere with the quality of service. And so one thing she mentioned about that, another thing she mentioned was the service that VTEL is going to provide, that they actually will be putting up some of their equipment on existing telephone poles. And it doesn't have to be these long, tall
You scare me with that pen.
I'm sorry. Okay.
She's
So it
pretty
doesn't-
scary, period.
No.
Just teasing.
Okay, so it doesn't, so it could be on telephone poles. And then a third thing that made me think this through was, I know that there's the rest of this, I guess the next year for this grant. So might we see what happens with VTEL and their success, and then maybe we could piggyback with that?
Okay. I want to answer a little
Yeah.
before I forget,
Okay.
Paul, and then you may speak again if you wish. We're really on the hook to respond to the specific request, one way or another. I mean, or not respond, but we've got, as it were, about a week to respond or not.
Right.
And so we can't, in terms of that, wait, although what we're asking for is, in fact, a little bit of time to consider. The second thing is to understand that VTEL does not really provide cell service, period.
Yeah.
They are providing, number one, in terms of the proposal for the sheriff's office, service for the sheriff for his local sheriff's communication. Number two, broadband, which is a little different. I don't totally understand how that works, but it doesn't mean cell coverage until AT&T or Verizon or another major carrier puts on that tower their equipment.
Okay.
So we're not really in a position to kind of wait and see. We kind of have to go one way or another to say it looks good to us, or it looks at least balanced, to show the balance that exists in the town. Because we're not trying to say, yes, it's great, or no, it sucks. We're trying to say, this is what we've heard. And you as the PSP hopefully will consider it, and what we would like you to do is let us get our own consent. We'd like, what we're really all we're asking for directly here is give us the time, instruct AT&T to consider this, or give us our own consultant. That's all we're actually asking for. And then we would go from there. Yes?
I also do like the tone of the letter. Thank you all very much.
Jake, you right.
I really like what Priscilla added. I think that one word I might change is that most of the people that aren't happy with it being in the development do want cell service. And I think you had said some.
I said
I think
even
there's only
those.
one person I knew that really didn't want it, but
Okay.
everyone else does. So I was.
So then that's where that maybe
Sure.
even those is a little better. Okay, which is the original word.
Yeah, but I
Okay.
do believe almost everyone does want it.
Okay.
And I had a couple of questions about the monopine rather than the monopole. They have a report in there. I was in there looking at the application today. There is a report in there that states that it will handle up to 90-mile-an-hour winds. And if there's no ice, it will withstand 40-mile-an-hour winds if there is 3/4 of an inch of ice on it. What would be different if it's a monopine? Because you've got all these branches that, in addition to this one pole, would have all this ice clinging to them. It would make the ice that much heavier. And what type of winds would that design withstand?
Honestly,
good-
we don't have that level of expertise, although what I know the VTEL guys said was that the problem with the monopine is often the branches. They're not attached to the same way branches are attached to a tree. So I would imagine, and I'm really speaking naively here, I don't mean to speak more than I know. Oh, I always speak more than I know, or I'd have to shut up. I suspect they fall off, as opposed to, it's not like a tree where that branch is going to take a heck of a lot of push. I would imagine they're built so that similarly fail-safe, that it doesn't harm the integrity of the structure to do monopine.
Okay, well, the application also states that now the height is 139 feet.
So raise it every time we turn around, they're going to get raised a little bit.
Yeah.
Bump it up.
But I was wondering, the Wyndham Regional Commission, their recommendation was that they make it the monopine, but also that they felt that there would be adequate coverage with an 80-foot monopine rather than
Yeah.
139 foot.
That's true. It's a little tricky from our perspective, if you don't mind, I'm sorry to, because we're still a little bit guided by an ordinance passed by a previous select board and with do hearing and so on. Because the issue there is if you go with lower, then you can't co-locate. You can only put on one service provider. So our ordinance says it has to be low, but it also has to cover co-location, meaning you can let another service provider come in there and use the same tower. If you build it lower, then you only get one provider.
What about a happy medium? Does it have to be, I mean, what if it was 100 rather than 139? They could make a little money
Right.
off it and still have adequate coverage, because I've seen the pictures, publication.
Wasn't that the tone of the Wyndham Regional's letter, though, to try to get to the happy medium is what I sort of think they were asking the PSP to do?
I think they were, and I think it just hasn't been the main focus of our discussion, and that is in the mix. They certainly, Wyndham Regional has submitted what they're submitting to the PSP. It feels like we'd have to reopen a whole, I don't want to say can of worms, but we'd have to rethink that, and it's kind of, we don't have time now to rethink whether what we want to do is push for a shorter pole.
I wouldn't put that in.
But it could go in the letter.
Well, I'm hesitant to.
Why?
Why do you say that?
Because it's almost like you're accepting the location of where it is right now by accepting the happy medium.
Yeah.
I think you should leave it the way it is, including what, my name is Jay Urado, by the way, including what Priscilla put in.
Okay.
I also have a question. Does the town of Newfane have a noise ordinance?
You have to, you can start noise as early as the sun rises and after 10 o'clock at night. Then you can call the police, the state police. I had people doing little wheelies on unmuffled cars right beside me, and I couldn't do a thing about it. So that's a state.
Is doing some reading on these cell towers that they have an alarm on them that when the electricity goes out, the alarm goes off. And the only way it gets shut off is when one of their technicians comes up and shuts it off.
I don't know. I mean, I think all we know is that, as I put in here, the noise generation, we could say alarms too, but I mean, I think the point is clear. Further comment or discussion, Jim?
Okay. So with regard to health and safety concerns, since it is their intention with the height of it to in fact have the co-located or co-locators, whatever the device would be called, do those then add additional radio frequency waves?
Well, I'm sure they do, but everything they're doing and what is clear about all this is very, very substantially below federal requirements. That doesn't mean they're safe. We all know that federal requirement doesn't equal safe, but we do know that it equals the criteria that the PSP will use. So I asked directly James Porter of Telecommunications, was he aware of any case where a petition was rejected because of radio frequency? And he said, well, the answer seemed to be no. Not of a tower. There was some case of something that was on ground level and was, that they did have a hesitancy because of radio frequency. On these towers, as you know, they're all over the country, and apparently that is not something the PSP is very likely to heed, even though I can understand people's concerns about it.
But the Wyndham Regional Commission, their reason for suggesting 80 feet is because they feel that the Dover Road is a scenic route, and so they said that, and I have the map, it would provide adequate coverage at 80 feet, but if they could have only one row of co-locators instead of 3 or 4, then that would reduce some of the RF waves. and they would still make a little bit of money. Where does it stop being about coverage and about all profit? Because
Well,
their whole application is about
I
coverage.
understand. You understand that from keeping it in context, that from AT&T's perspective, and without saying this with any animosity to AT&T or any other, they are in business and they are looking for a cost ratio that says it's worth our building for the benefit, that the profit that we will make. They're not doing it as a public service. They are doing it as a business. You could, well imagine, we saw after the flood that the cow, which had a very low tower, actually reached a lot of the citizens of South Newfane. What it would not cover is enough of Dover Road, which is what is a huge issue for AT&T or Verizon, is can they say to their customers, can they show them a map and say, if you drive from point A to point B, you'll be covered. It's AT&T at any moment in time can walk away from this. And I don't say that as a threat.
No, I understand.
I say it simply as, from their perspective, they look at it and they say, are we going to make more money than it's going to cost us? And at some point they say it's not.
I don't think they're going to walk away, though.
I'm not saying they will, but I'm simply saying that's not something any of us controls. Even the PSB doesn't control it. They can say, yes, you can have a permit, but AT&T could say, you know what, we thought about it a little bit, not so much. Or they could say, yes, they do. So there's a certain balance you try to work between what the company needs to do to make its money and what our town populace needs to have coverage, and what the more densely populated area needs to feel comfortable. And our biggest push throughout has been, could you just at least consider a site that might not give you quite as much propagation, but also isn't in somebody's backyard? That there's property around. We don't live in a densely populated area. Couldn't you find a place where there isn't? We're still hoping that that's the solution. But honestly, we have to be aware. The PSB, as I've been told by James Porter very clearly, they don't ultimately consider this versus that. They ultimately come down on, is it a yes or is it a no? Is it undo this? Does it violate the rules they are to operate with? And as you know, our state legislature put together this. And to be totally in perspective, all actions of select boards throughout the state of Vermont are those things not legislated by the state government, just as all state things are all those not legislated by the federal government. And they could have written this law, they could very well have written the law such that the municipalities' ordinances were null and void, to say that they could have done that. They didn't. The ordinances still exist, but what we end up, it does give, quote, the option to go straight to the PSB, and that's what they're doing. So we are allowed to have input, and that's what we're attempting to provide. And you guys, or as groups, as individuals, as the fire departments, as anybody in any capacity, can put into the PSB, and I strongly, as Gloria mentioned, I strongly urge that people do put together what, from a particular perspective, so the PSB has all the cards on the table, but we as a select board are trying to do something that kind of pulls together things in as balanced a manner as we can. I mean, that's what we're going for. I'm not saying we succeed, but that's what we're going for.
I'd like to just say one more thing, please. I hope that this letter will really help, and I do like the tone of this letter. But for a lot of things that I've read and heard lately, it just seems discouraging. The projects are going up here, there, everywhere. One thing Colin from the Wyndham Regional Commission said is the Public Service Board is required to give due consideration to their recommendation, and they are also required to give due consideration to the board's recommendation. So if it were put in your letter also, the fact that, I'd like to think it's not going to go on Oak Hill Road, but if it did, if it wasn't as high as they want, maybe, you know, a shorter tower that couldn't be seen as much and that maybe wouldn't have as many co-locators. If they see that in both of the letters, then maybe they will give that due consideration, and we won't end up with a 139-foot tall tower.
I guess I was just wondering that when we were talking about, and I mentioned to John the idea of saying, I can't remember the term I used, about sort of, I can't remember, what did I say, John, about the Wyndham Regional letter.
You didn't write this. Is this something you said to me verbally?
Yeah, we talked about,
yes.
you know, backing. But the thing is, then I'm thinking about what you just said, Jay, about, you know, does that take away from what we're saying?
Just gonna grab
Sure. Yeah, I guess my feeling, I understand it, but I feel like it's just hard. There are so many arguments both ways, and kind of what I'm trying to go by is, well, we have an ordinance, and the ordinance says it shouldn't be this tall as it is, but it should have co-locators. So I don't want to kind of, we've said that it violates our ordinance on its height, and I think that to me is as strong a statement as we can make.
And what's the absolute height? Is it be 20 feet above?
It's supposed to be 20 feet above, and in fact, I think it's 90. I said 73. I'm going to have to check that figure because I really wasn't totally sure. But I said that it was 73 feet taller than that, meaning 93 above. I think it's 73 feet above tree line. That's what I wrote.
Yeah,
but I will check that figure because I'm not absolutely certain of the figure.
I've got a couple of things. One in response to Jake. My sister was in management in Verizon for 30 years, and we are my Fairpoint in Vermont because Vermont does not. They had to kind of get rid of some things when they changed from, you know, Ma Bell to whatever. So Vermont and Maine and what is it, New Hampshire, I mean, we were just sold off. We weren't a viable, Verizon no longer wanted us. And so to say, are they, you know, absolutely their application would be to get as much coverage. That's, shall I say, the right language for them to be using at this point in time in history. But it will always be, you know, they've got to make money off of it. So denying them, I think they were saying, what was it, just, is the VTEL that was 2 co-locators.
Right.
It was
Well,
X
this
number
one
of
does
feet.
too. This one also
Does it just say allows 2? So to try to limit them to 1 probably wouldn't work, but I hear what you're saying, and yes, it's a bottom line. I don't fight with my sister, but sometimes I get huffy because she'll say, you know, da-da-da-da-da, but, you know, they've got to get this. No, they don't. You know, the shareholder, some of these multi-billionaires, they don't need any more billions. You know, let those of us who earn our living keep some of our money.
All right.
But I was going to say, and this has nothing more to do with Jake's comments, maybe it is. I heard the word recommendation come out. What I don't see this letter being is a recommendation.
It's not.
And so I do want to make that kind of clear. And then we say for and against. Sometimes in terms of writing persuasive speeches, etc., get rid of your weaker arguments first. So, you know, if we wanted to, we could say, you know, people really support getting cell service, and then hit it hard with all of the reasons why we would like it in a different place, so that maybe reversing that. And then a third thing that I thought about was we were requesting them, John, to to wait, to give us an extended,
Right.
to extend the period. Somewhere we got to hit them early on in that letter to make sure that, you know, when we send this out, let's say we send it out tomorrow, you know, we're really only talking about a week. So they've got to get it, they've got to read it. So are they going to respond to the select board saying, give us more time before a decision?
We really don't
But it's
control
kind
it.
of tucked, yeah, I understand that, John, but it's kind of tucked right in the middle there
No,
somewhere.
It's at the very end, which is in my head where you lead your arguments and you close with your, what is it you
So
want.
that is the,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Second last
Yeah,
paragraph.
yeah, it really culminates in that other than a little
Just
closer.
somehow to make sure that that's,
All right,
Yeah,
I would really like to, if we could, to move to voting.
I just want to ask one question.
I'm sorry, let me,
Gerald,
Gerald, and then I'll-
Go ahead.
Okay.
Do you want to go ahead with Priscilla first?
I just wanted to know, in considering that, does it kind of water down our request if we say, and if, you know, at the end, and if you decide to ignore all of what we have requested, we ask that you at least please, you know, then follow the recommendations of the Wyndham Regional Planning Commission?
Let me
I'm
put
just
in,
asking.
let me try as something we can vote on.
That's what I was worried about.
See, Jay doesn't.
I know,
Jay,
I know.
I can't keep it straight. Jay,
Okay.
but
I don't know, I never
we can
took, like,
vote on it.
debate.
I think it's very, you know, these things, but, you know, let's be realistic about just how much weight this is going to be given. It will be given weight, but maybe not as much as any of us would wish. We could add, if we wish, and I'll put it in simply as a, but we also had some disagreement. I was going to add something like the select board also requests that the Public Service Board, the select board second, you know, I can't, I'm trying to get wording in the moment, which is very difficult, but that we, that they pay close attention to the proposal, the suggestion made by Wyndham Regional Commission. But that then also includes the monopine that people aren't so sure about. So I just don't want to get into it. I'd sort of rather let Wyndham Regional say what they said, we said what we said.
I'm not recommending it, I'm just
I
throwing
think
it out
that's cleaner, and if that's acceptable.
there. Okay.
Now, you had deferred to her.
Yes.
Yeah, and then I really do want to wrap it up.
I totally appreciate this time because
Yeah.
it's a very important issue. So thank you. And I wanted to clarify, what was your request regarding the consultant? Because
We're requesting that either they either change their orders. I'll read it to you so you don't have to. Ensure that due consideration is given to sites outside the 0.5-mile radius from the proposed site, either by A, directing AT&T to pay for an independent consultant under the Town of Newfane supervision, or B, by directing Jane Porter's independent consultants to balance optimal propagation against minimal neighborhood disruption and its consideration.
okay, so you're asking.
They can do it either way,
Yeah.
but
Okay, I just want to clarify that wording. So the issue of coverage, and I know I've said this before the previous meeting, but I have the AT&T phone given out at
Right.
Irene. I kept it, I have paid the service for it. From the moment I turn onto Grimes Hill, through South Newfane, through Williamsville, through South Newfane, and out Dover Road, I have cell service.
Yeah.
When I cross over the Parish Hill Bridge going up to the site, my house is down below. I lose it there, although occasionally I have it. The night of our last meeting, I went home. I had cell service in my kitchen. I
want your
called my
phone.
own
yeah,
phone.
really, we want your phone.
I've got a few
It is
phones
nothing but a
still in the...
dinky phone.
I know, it's
Really
amazing.
dinky phone. But so when you go up to the top of the hill where the site is, there's also cell service. And these folks here who live underneath the proposed site have cell service. A few spotty places. I had to go to Whitingham a week ago, all the way out Dover Road. I have cell service.
Understand it is
So-
different summer and winter.
So I understand.
that's
So
a
when
big
they
difference.
were saying that these particular other sites that they rejected because the one that we have right now, I think they're saying there's about a 7-mile corridor, and even the current proposed site doesn't quite meet all but, it meets all but about 1.25 miles or something, and the other proposed sites were even more, that they did not get 1.5 miles, some were 2 miles, and this is just out of this 7-mile corridor where there is already cell service. So
No, I understand.
there are
That's
other
why-
places like
that's why we're
Route
trying-
30 on up through to Townsend.
That's why we're trying to say one should consider the
Yeah.
balance as opposed to simply max coverage.
Exactly.
Yeah,
But I guess my only additional piece in there is that there is already cell service.
In one draft I included, and I realized it's not a strong argument that some people already have service, because obviously lots of people don't. So,
Right.
and emergency personnel have been reporting their conditions where they do not. So it does seem like it's a very debatable point, and that's where the independent consultants would come in.
So if we-
And that's why we'd really like to have one of our own.
Do you have an idea of how much one costs?
I thought it was about $10, but we didn't have $10. I have no idea.
No, I have
no
wondered,
idea. We did discuss the possibility of as a select board, covering the costs ourselves, and basically the select board did not show a willingness to foot the bill.
I don't think I was in on that conversation.
No, was I?
Well, we
I
did.
mean, if the
we were
neighbors in the
physical.
local community said, okay,
And now, in all honesty, unless they give us an extension, we don't have time.
and I think in your wording also, maybe because their application was submitted on the 20th of December, which is, a very difficult time to get people together, mail, we're in the holidays, that it's,
They just did it in the shortest possible time they could. Let's there
doesn't give much of it.
there was a certain amount of what shall we call it? I won't call it anything. I'm on TV.
Yeah,
All right, I would like to go to the considering by the board. In this case, we will be just the board here discussing, because we're now coming to a vote on specific items. The first, and these are essentially what we're considering first, are amendments to the letter. Rather than, what I'd like to do is consider those first and then come to the letter as a whole. A little bit of reverse normal
I'm just
process.
wondering if we should make a motion and then,
okay.
I don't know.
I guess we do need to do it that way. So let's have the motion, and then we'll have, I'd like a motion to have the letter as originally drafted. This is my suggestion, and if people think it's a better way.
I assume there's a general consensus on the board that we're in agreement pretty much to work this letter?
Well, not necessarily. You could vote against, say, I don't want the letter altogether.
Well, if we do that, there's no point going through those individually.
Well, I think that there are at least some of us, enough of us who think that. Yeah, I understand it might save time.
Just
but
checking ahead here.
I think that, okay. So I'd like a motion to send the letter as written, and then we'll go through and make amendments to it based on the specific suggestions. You follow?
Okay.
So could I get a motion to send the letter as written? We're not going to vote on it till we've gone through the amendment. Do I have a second? I don't have a second. So somebody else, there's no motion currently on
Yeah,
the
because
table.
my reason for not seconding it is it just seems to me that we do the friendly changes. And so-
I'm fine with doing the changes first.
Sure. And then.
All right, that's fine. So then the first question I have is that we change the draft, that it's a little, normal parliamentary procedure would be to put the whole motion there and then to vote on the amendments. It really is just, but, because we're making a motion about something that doesn't yet exist. To modify, the first motion would be to modify the draft to include the sentence, after a second point of conflict is distance from adjoining properties, as would add as required by the, I guess, no, let's see, the AT&T I'm just trying to find the wording, said they could meet this requirement, that's whatever, and the town of Newfane would recommend this change to its proposal. And you could play with that wording. I'm just really...
I think that wordsmithing it, we don't have to be...
We can...
That's, yeah.
Okay, so then the question is, should we add that sentence? And we're going to take, this is still on the draft, we're not voting on the thing as a whole.
We don't need, I don't believe we need a motion for that. Let's work
Yeah.
it, and
All
then
right.
we'll go.
Well, but I want to vote on it because I don't actually want that one in there. I'd rather leave it out.
I see. I'm sorry.
See, that's why I think we need a motion on the
Okay.
whole, and then we amend it. You see what I'm saying?
So do you want to make it again, and I'll second it?
So if you would make the motion that we
So moved that we, yes.
adopt the original letter, Gloria's second is, now we're looking at amendments to that. This is the first amendment,
Say where it's going,
which
please.
is after the words "a second point of conflict" is the distance from adjoining properties.
Bottom of the first page?
Bottom of the first page. If it, well, it depends on which version. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
on.
Oh, he's on a
Yeah,
different version.
I'm on the
Yeah.
whatever. And the AT&T has indicated. I'm just going to say indicated rather than said, that they could meet this requirement, and the town of Newfane would recommend this change to their proposal.
And the select board would recommend.
Select board of the town of Newfane.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor of amending the letter to include that line? We could have a discussion. Let's not discuss. We've already discussed. All those in favor of? I'm sorry. Is there any discussion
I feel like
on
it's
that?
not clear.
Well, it's very hard to write a thing on the fly this way.
I mean, the only thing that the only point I was making is that, to be clear about the second point of conflict, is that the tower is within the proposed position of the tower is within the setback.
Oh, well, so you just want to change second point of conflict is the tower of conflict with the ordinance.
Yeah.
So would now read with the ordinance is insufficiently set back from adjoining properties.
No, not, if you read that whole sentence, it wouldn't make sense
A
to me.
second point of conflict with the ordinance is,
The second point
I
of
have the
conflict
distance
is-
from adjoining
Does
properties.
not meet
Does not
the minimum
extend.
setback.
Does not
is-
meet, that's better.
Is that
Does not
it?
meet minimum
Setback
Back.
requirements.
setback requirements.
Yes.
From adjoining properties or not?
I think that everybody knows what that means.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd leave it set
Okay,
like that.
fine. Okay, I have no problem with that amendment.
Okay.
All right, so let me just see if I got it, captured it correctly. The ordinance, a second point of conflict is with the ordinance. With the ordinance is that it does not meet minimum setback requirements.
No, the ordinance,
The proposed location.
the proposed location does not.
Yeah.
Is that the proposed, I said just it.
Well,
The
yeah.
proposed location, that's fine. All right,
Proposed tower location.
it's really hard to
Yes,
write this
I know.
this way. Let me just try it
There's no
now.
room
The
left.
second point of conflict with the ordinance is that the proposed location does not meet minimum setback requirements. Period.
Yes.
And that's it?
Yeah.
Okay, I have no problem with changing it to say that. Next, the question...
Did we vote on that?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. All those in favor of amending well, except that I'm taking it as a friendly amendment. Well, I guess I didn't make it.
No, but you
so-
said, but,
No, we should vote on it. It's fine. All those in favor of amending the motion to include that?
well, maybe, Pat, did any of us make a motion to amend it?
You,
Oh, okay.
I think we made them.
motion-
You're right. We need a motion to make that amendment.
I move to amend the proposed, what are we calling it?
letter.
Letter to the PSB to include the sentence that the second point of conflict with the ordinance is that the proposed tower location does not meet the minimum setback requirements.
Okay, that's exactly what I have. That's great.
Second.
All right. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the amending the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion, that amendment carries. Next, the question of whether we should add the paragraph about the location, the paragraph, the proposed tower site location is at the end of a narrow road, et cetera, et cetera. I guess I have to read it, not everybody has it in front of me. The proposed AT&T site location is at the end of a narrow private road within a private development made up of 20 homes within 2-acre lots. Upon purchasing the lots of Oak Hill Development, the buyers are required to sign various covenants which are part of their deed and are to regulate the use of their property and to prevent any perceived adverse impact on the aesthetics of the development. I'm going to leave off the last sentence and vote on it that separately, just, since I think there was a little more discussion on that, if that's acceptable to you. The several, or do you want it part of all the same thing? All right, I'll read it in. Several of these owners are infuriated because the developer has agreed to lease his own property within the development of AT&T. So do I have a motion to amend the letter to include that?
Okay. I'll make the motion.
It's been moved
Seconded.
and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I'm just wondering if that second sentence actually takes something away from the. I think that the first sentences explain part of. They explain the story and sort of, focus in quickly on the problem, and then when you read the last sentence about the homeowners being upset about the developer, all of a sudden I thought, oh man, maybe it sounds like they're just angry about that, and maybe that takes away from the story.
Yeah, that was my feeling.
Well, I think it does.
Okay, if you think so, then I'm willing to.
All right, so I'm not sure I like the whole paragraph, to be honest with you.
Well, I told you I wrote it.
I may vote against it, but that's
I
just...
told you could rewrite it.
Well, all right, I can vote against it either way. The proposed AT&T tower site, so this is the amendment now. The proposed AT&T tower site is located at the end of a narrow private road within a private development made up of 20 houses on 2-acre lots. On purchasing the lots of the Oak Hill development, the buyers are required to sign various covenants which are part of their deed and regulate their use of the property to prevent any adverse impact on the aesthetics of their development. Okay, that's the amendment. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none. All those in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? I'm opposed. Okay.
Todd, are you voting?
He voted.
Oh, okay.
For. He voted for.
I couldn't hear you through
did
his
vote
head.
for. Okay, that is included then in the letter. The next piece is just whether did you drop the even versus some of, or
That's fine.
Okay, so we're not going to that one. And then the last one is simply to replace, which I accepted as just the final letter is the second paragraph I wrote about the Conservation Committee, the shorter version.
The shorter version, okay.
And putting mild. Okay, that concludes it unless there are other suggested revisions. Hearing none, we can go to the motion as amended. All those who are in favor of sending the letter as amended signify by saying aye. Aye. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Nicely done. I must say, and thank you for community input. Okay. We now proceed To the VTEL tower, although I did expect a representative from the sheriff's office with respect to that, and not seeing the representative, I don't believe there is anything new to discuss about that tower. So I'm going to...
Just kind of point of information, Keith Clark was on the radio this morning.
I guess I should actually, there's something.
Yeah, encouraging us to make sure that the tower went in.
Yeah.
If the sheriff's office doesn't get that particular tower, then they're going to have to build something on their own and pass the expense to the Windham County, whom they service. And in some ways, just as a taxpayer of the town of Newfane, I'm not sure that that's it could share some of the expense with all of the other towns in Windham County and not just be Newfane specific. Just because that sits in Newfane, we're the Shire town, doesn't mean we would end up having to take all of that financial responsibility. So I was a bit puzzled, I guess, by hearing that.
Well, I just thought I would read into the record what the sheriff wrote for immediate release, which I must say I was somewhat concerned that I found out from a reporter, not directly from the sheriff's office. But he released a thing saying that, and I'll just read what he said. When Sheriff needs a new cell tower. This is for immediate release. When he took office in 2007, Sheriff Keith D. Clark of Windham County knew he had several things to do on his to-do list. The time has come now to tackle an expensive one, replace the department's aging radio tower. Without the tower, we lose a key piece of our communications equipment, communications with our deputies. Radio communications were integral during our response to Tropical Storm Irene when cell phone circuits were overloaded, said Sheriff Clark. The system allows my deputies to communicate with my dispatch. It enables deputies to respond promptly, maintain officer safety, and get dangerous drivers off the road. Without this tower, my dispatch loses the two-way capability of our radio system. That's when a diamond in the rough, VTEL, a Springfield-based telephone company, is currently working to... that is when a diamond was found in the rough. VTEL, a Springfield-based telephone company, is currently working to spread broadband internet and telephone services to rural Vermont and is looking for apt site to place towers. By partnering with VTEL, the tower would be replaced at no cost to the sheriff. If I have to replace it, it'll be a cost that I pass on to our contracts to the county. Sheriff Clark, along with Michelle Guite, President of VTEL, Carl Rinker, President of Rinker Communications, and Karen Marshall, on behalf of Governor Peter Shumlin, presented the proposal to the Newfane Selectboard on December 20th, 2012. With a letter of support from the Select Board, the proposal could turn into reality. Without it, the federal funding that makes this possible could become entangled in a bureaucratic process that could stonewall the project and make it cost prohibitive. We are asking that the town people of Newfane contact their Select Board representatives to voice their support of a replacement of the tower. Okay.
Just Newfane?
Yes. Well, I'm just reading what he wrote. Okay, that's the press release. So, and this is available via our website, and at our office are copies of documents, plans, and simulated photos regarding the replacement of the tower. The public is welcome to access them at www.windhamsheriff.com/sheriff, .php. Then I will give this to our administrative assistant if anybody wants the specific in the sheriff's links section, or review them at our office in Newfane across the street. And just for people's knowledge, there is some question. This involves not only the town of Newfane, it also involves the village of Newfane, because strictly speaking, it's in the village of Newfane, which also has potential to be a party in any discussion, and may actually have a greater role than our own.
But isn't it that land county owned?
I'm about to get to that. The land is actually owned by the county, and it is owned under specific codicils that says that there can be no commercial enterprises. And so there may be a question of whether they can do it without the danger that there could be a suit, and the land, if that's violated, the land reverts to the family that gave it so many years ago. So it's a complex issue that involves a lot more than this select board. But at the moment, unlike AT&T, which is already at the final stage, we actually have not had an initial letter of intent. We have had a verbal statement, but they need to give an official, literal warning to us and to many other parties saying this is our plan before the 45-day clock starts, and that has to start before you get to the 21-day comment period. So there's some time to consider this and see what people think and see what comes up. That's to inform.
Can I ask a question?
Yes? Unlikely that I know the answer. But
What you just mentioned now about the property being owned by the county and not allowing for commercial enterprise, one other thought that I had with regarding South Newfane, and so likewise this other cell tower, so if for instance, rent is being paid over in South Newfane to the property owner there, whoever the property owner would be here, couldn't these cell towers be located on town property or some state property so that in fact AT&T would be paying the town of Newfane to rent out a piece of property if in fact that site was suitable?
I guess it's possible. I don't think it's something we as a select board particularly want to get into cell phone rental.
Not necessarily, I guess, but if you were making 2,000 or 4,000 and once you get 3 co-later...
I'm actually sponsoring my bald head as a cell phone location. I've heard it gets great signals and I can...
Did you ever...
something that the town could... I mean,
We could. I think we would be hesitant.
$3,000 or $4,000 a month for many.
I think
But once you get the other phone companies who put their co-locators on, they're not going to...
No, because that's...
Well, anyway, I'm going to cut this a little short. We do have other important business, and it's already 8 o'clock.
Consideration, but I wondered if what you just mentioned then makes it...
I think it's null and void. We certainly can't use the center of Newfane for that. And
Simply don't know yet.
yeah, and we certainly would expect the historical commission of the town of Newfane to be party to any consideration of this sort. Okay.
Time and explanation.
Thank you. All right, we now move on to much more exciting topics, such as the budget. Now, we have completed our discussions on the budget itself and determined what the recommended budget will be. We do have to pay very close attention to these deadlines that are approaching us, in that what Pat determined was that the deadline for the photo is, in 5 days from today? The deadline for the...
Why?
This was sent to the whole select board. This should not be a surprise.
Say the photo.
The deadline for the photo, does anyone have this? Pat sent this out to all.
Do you mean for the cover?
For the cover.
Oh.
Does anyone know of an old photo or new of the town offices? Does anyone have a suggestion of what it could be?
Cover. Yeah, I'm looking for a suggestion
The photo
for the cover. I wanted to go to the Historical Society, but they closed to see what they would have there. And I don't care what time of year it is, just something, or if you know of a photographer in town that has photos.
Maybe get a hold of Danny Brooks.
Danny Brooks.
One of the big ones in the Historical Society.
Okay, thanks.
Dan Brooks. Gary Katz is now the president of the Historical Society.
Okay.
365 7193.
Okay.
It worries me that you know that number.
Certainly.
Yeah,
It's on the machine because it goes down.
it is 7193.
Yeah, that's
Okay, so if you end up really stuck, Pat, I can, and it is, are we agree, what we normally put on it, some picture of the town offices, is that?
not necessarily. Years ago, it was just our
The
logo.
The logo's been on for several years, but it would be nice to.
I could always come and take a picture, a digital picture, and give it to you immediately if you needed it.
You don't mean of the office that it is now.
Well,
Please.
No, of the nose, the red nose.
the red nose.
Could you pull one off from BCTV and just
Go down
freeze
the river.
flash that? We'll put it right on the town report.
Blow it up like this.
Don't worry, I'll bring it
Just so
to
that
the
you get
town
the nose.
meeting.
And we're all sitting here looking like
Bridge 14, well, except it's covered with snow
All
now.
right, go down the river and shoot a picture of it up the river.
I would do that.
That's nice.
I would
That
do
might be really nice.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
All right, I'll do that.
15 years. So.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's
That's a
an
great
excellent idea.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll take a picture of Bridge 14
You
from
happen
down
to
the
know where
river.
it
Fall in
Yeah.
the river. Make
Over, make sure. Yeah.
And you send it to me?
No. I'm probably going down the river. Todd's going to be there pushing me in.
The
Okay.
dam tomorrow. Let me know when you're going to do it.
Okay. All right. Picture of Bridge 14. Okay.
Yeah,
that's
nice.
item 1. Item 2 is the select board report, which I did send you all a draft thereof. I can't read it. I swear to God. Dennis and I did one last time. What did people read it? Can you think
Yeah.
of things that should be added to this or subtracted?
Gloria? Well, Gloria's got notes.
Okay, Gloria.
Well, mine are just some corrections. At first, I thought we'd maybe the only thing we could add to it, because we've spent so much time since July 1st on the cell tower, but we did have during the last fiscal year a petition from 5% of the voters to encourage the select board to make sure we got cell towers. So, you know, I know that.
Was that this year? That wasn't this year's board. That was definitely last year's board.
I don't know about this.
That wasn't this year's board.
Well, that
It
may
ran
be
over,
true.
didn't it?
That may be true, but we're talking about July. It was certainly after Irene, so we're talking about
That's right.
from July
Oh, I see. It's
of
really from July
2011
1st.
to December. So maybe we could just add a sentence and
Could you add that, give
Yeah.
me that sentence to add, and I'll put it in?
okay. And I just thought in terms of the wording that in the second paragraph.
I don't remember that petition. What was the, it was just that I vaguely remember. Check
had-
the date on it, make sure it
Well, I've
was
got
in
it in
this
the
fiscal year.
No, it couldn't have been because I know.
Okay.
'Cause I checked the-
Just check.
Yeah.
Okay. But you'll give me a sentence. I just don't want to sort of muddy those cell phone. I don't want to talk about cell phones ever again. I'm never using one henceforth.
I think in the second paragraph, you want to put a dollar sign in front of the 4.5 million. And wouldn't we say will have caused $4.5 million in damages or
Okay. Yeah, that's
of
fine.
damage.
I don't have a problem.
Yeah. I thought we sounded a little better than we were voted down in terms of the
I didn't want to make a
purchasing.
major issue, but they weren't. The thing is, they weren't voted. They voted down the purchase. They didn't, strictly speaking, vote down the. What did I end up saying? To
Well, you
stop
just
it?
said that we concluded it was not advisable.
Well, see, that's well.
Could we have proceeded?
We
and
could
gone
have,
ahead?
yes.
Okay, then
We
leave it
could
the way.
have. We could have said we're going to discontinue the road, and it's with not that we did, but we concluded that, given that the town didn't want to buy a house,
Yeah,
we're
okay.
done.
I just
I mean, it's just wording. I just don't
no,
want to.
I know. I just thought we came out.
It's a wound.
Yeah. And then your fourth paragraph, Pat didn't take on.
Let me just take a look. I considered alternative rebuilding, but No, you're right. But the town voted.
Yeah.
I wanted to say, what I wrote was the select board considered alternatives to rebuilding the Lynch Bridge, but at a special town meeting, the voters were, I wrote, the voters were not keen on purchasing the property across the Lynch Bridge will be built.
Well, they didn't.
Or
That's
just
not
say
what
that
they decided.
the voters were opposed.
They voted a majority of the voters. I mean, I could really say
Vast majority.
well, I don't want to say
99.
vast. A majority of towns majority of town voters rejected. How about that? That's strong. Purchasing the property across the bridge, access by the bridge.
Lynch Bridge will be
built.
And the select board is proceeding with the project of rebuilding
Yes.
Lynch Bridge.
Yes, because that is a big.
I want to try to keep it to a single page, though. I don't want to. I will try. They may have to do a little clipping
Yeah,
to try
but
to
you
get
know,
it to a page,
you've got-
because we really try to keep it to a page.
You can also reduce the size of that print, too.
I mean, minuscule. I don't want anyone to read it.
And the other thing is you could also, what I do is kind of indent instead of indent, and leaving a space between.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah, there are ways to do that.
That's Pat's job.
So we can come down to the fourth paragraph. Pat Grace didn't take on a task, she took on a position.
Oh, okay. I am fine with that.
And then you said one of...
Was it 5 years Shannon was here? I wasn't sure.
I believe that's
That sounds right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you say one of the listers and resigned.
Oh,
So
one of
the
the
and...
resigned and the zoning administrator, yes, okay.
Can I just say something about that sentence also?
Yes.
That I don't know that a lot of people know who Shannon Mickle is, actually. I think that the point is that their changeover happened, and that, to me, what's more pertinent is that the administration assistant resigned, and we had to, I guess, I don't know.
Well, I use other names. How about, but I think maybe saying the select board's administrative
Yes.
assistant.
Yeah.
So it's identified.
And then we don't need her moving to Florida?
Yeah.
All right,
If you
I
want
guess
to
it
put
doesn't
yeah.
matter. I just didn't want to make it look like she resigned because she couldn't work with me anymore.
No, that was part of it.
I think it's
Big part.
understandable. But, yeah,
Nobody's saying anything.
I see that.
And then,
She moved out of the state. Anyway.
so back to the listers.
Yes.
Because one of the listers resigned and,
Maybe just
And-
period.
because I expect it to say and
Right, you're right.
was filled.
The zoning administrator position, it should be administrator, not administer.
Right.
Why isn't it the two listers resigned?
Two listers? Well, I don't want to get into the one who was here for 2 days or something.
We went through with the
Yeah,
interviewing
and then
process.
maybe you could just say the zoning administration position was also filled by a new person and not, not give that background of he stepped up and then he...
Oh, I see. If it's filled by a new person, just leave out the stepped up.
Yeah,
By a new person, and then I can cut the whole
last sentence.
Okay.
And that's just my...
Okay, I
thought on it.
agree, and the shorter is better.
And then in the next paragraph, you just have the last sentence, and maybe spell out road, but you have Dover Road, and about years, so get rid of the S on year, and a half of steady work.
Year and a half.
Yeah, you've got,
Okay.
you just have a plural.
Oh,
You have it.
But could we say, was it 15 years? How long did it?
It was 16, actually.
16 years of discussion?
We really should tie that to the cover photo,
Yes, good idea.
That should tie to that cover photo.
How would you suggest doing it? time. I mean, are you serious, or you look?
No,
at
no.
But I'm just saying, what should I say? See cover photo, or?
Yes, we got to do something, because it's like, really, that was a milestone. When
Okay.
you think about it, Todd.
Okay.
Really?
Sure was. Sure was.
Yeah.
Sure
Yeah.
was. And a
16
year and a
years and
half.
thousands of
A
dollars.
year and a half. I see what you're saying. All right.
Our town report shows,
It shows the new.
or commemorates
Yeah.
Our town, the
new
cover.
bridge.
All right. Town report cover. I'll come up with some line that
Yeah.
doesn't sound completely
You're
stupid.
going to resend all this.
No, I mean, yes. If you didn't get it all?
Oh, Pat.
Is it,
Oh, yeah, I did.
is it, excuse me, Rich, but is it too inconsequential that this year began the televising of the select board meetings on BCTV?
I think it's too embarrassing that we.
I mean, I think that I would only hope that it may be another way to get people to know that it's going on. That maybe they read the report. Maybe
I don't know. I guess I personally don't.
What about actually noting that at the bottom?
Well, that's
so
what
that
you
the
suggest.
people are, gosh,
that's what-
if you don't catch us personally, watch us on, what is it, Channel 10?
Yeah.
There we go.
If you can't make the meeting,
Not on TV.
see us at 3 in the morning. My wife said when I was out of town
Yeah, but
one
you'd be
time,
surprised
she
how many
woke up
people
at 2 in the
say-
morning
Oh, I believe you, I
to the
heard
TV being on, hearing my voice.
Really?
She's like, oh my God.
I know. I still haven't seen it.
And I think in that
Traumatic.
very last
All right,
paragraph.
so I'll put in some sentence about people. You want
I
that?
wrote at the beginning of this year, the select board meetings began to be televised on BCTV.
Could you just
You've got too
send me
many.
that
You've got
sentence?
too many beginnings.
Okay.
Just send me a picture.
I'm no writer. Yeah, please.
All right, I'm going to put it in there before the last sentence, the BCTV. I'll put something simple. Okay.
And then in the last sentence that you do have down, you make that, I guess, that should go out. We.
Yeah, gotcha.
My guess.
Yeah, you're right. Oh, stop. It's a little folksy, that's all.
You know
I
that
know.
don't
But it's
like
first, she's
chocolate.
right. It's too individual.
But I haven't had one.
We all have our things. Okay? We set? Beautiful.
Onward.
Moving forward.
Anything to
We know all the lines.
Part of my.
We know everything for the budget. Pat, could you just give us a quick report on your NEMRIC progress?
Yes, Lori from Dummerston worked with me yesterday morning to get me started with NEMRAC and plugging in numbers as we speak.
That's really terrific.
So thank you, Lori from Dummerston Town Office.
Yeah.
So,
Great.
yeah.
Thank you. And thank you, Pat, for taking that on and getting it in motion. It's one of those really crucial tasks as part of your crucial position. Just a couple little details on the budget. We did have a little bit of a, I don't know what to call it, kerfuffle about the premium for MVP because the bid that I originally received was that though it said it was 12.5% increase, looked like a 40% increase because it's at $112,000 instead of the about $80,000 that we're currently paying, and I went a little crazy. I mean, I just got concerned about it very much. But it turned out that it was really what I had received as being a quote was really a worksheet and not the final quote, even though it looked pretty formal, I must say. And the actual figure is $78,654.82, which is actually flat. It's actually slightly lower because, as it turns out, I don't want to get into personal things, but there's just a change in how many family versus individual covers we have. So the bottom line is flat. MVP rate, which is great. The other just small budget item, I know we've discussed a little back and forth about getting a fireproof drawers for the administrative assistant, which I still think is important. And what we're going to look into actually is seeing if we can get the combination for this safe so that we could start using it as a fireproof safe rather
Yeah, I talked to Maureen
just
today.
as a closet.
To just suggest that, because
Yeah.
I think somewhere hidden she does have it, because one other time it actually got locked, and she was able to find it and get
Okay,
it.
so that either she can, hopefully she can find it, we also could go back in time, maybe somebody's got a, old combination, but one way or another, we want to get that safe to be operating as a fireproof safe rather than as just a heavy, very heavy file, very heavy storage cabinet.
We should also look, that big map thing has a certain amount of fireproofing, but it would be good to have these documents locked.
Yeah, we should then consider what things should be done. Another thing we did get the quote from the solid waste, and actually, Todd, what I said to you at the beginning of the meeting, I was a little confused between that and Beamer's. They say it's a 5% increase, which is what it looks like, $20,711.45. So that's simply the reality that we have to deal with. Beamer's is going up from 5% to 5.5%. That sounds like a 0.5% increase. It's really a 10% increase if you think about it. Because if you go from 5% to 5.5, what you're adding is 0.5 on top of 5. That's
Which is 10%.
10%. So that's actually a fairly substantial one. The total number is not huge and doesn't throw our budget out of plan, but it is a large increase. The last thing I have on the town report is that we do need to dedicate the report. So we need to decide who we feel would be the most important the person we should dedicate the report to, or if we should, we're not required to, but we usually do. And Priscilla sent a note to me, which I'll share with you all, suggesting that she thinks that Dick and Sandy Dowley that the report was dedicated to them 4 or 5 years ago. I don't know if it's...
That does sound familiar, though. The two
There
of
was a
them.
picture of them on the lawnmower or something like that about 5 years ago.
Anybody sure? I don't have an old...
I could certainly...
It rings a bell.
Well, it'd be neat
Yeah.
to figure it out now, because we should kind of figure it out while we're sitting here. The other possibilities...
If you want me to, I can, I've got the town reports.
Well, that's probably what she's looking for, is old town reports right now.
Anyway,
to see if-
I have copies in the vault.
Well, we should figure it out now, is kind of what I'm getting.
Were there any other suggestions?
See, our other
That's one.
suggestions were... Chris,
Yes.
Oh, do you want to say?
No, go ahead.
It's your suggestions. You could say them.
Well,
If you don't remember.
I do.
The Alzheimer's
I threw out Chris and Carol only because I thought that they're in the flood, it seemed like they were so gracious and mostly thought about other people. And then organized a parade, which I thought was pretty swell. Then I thought of Vera Harrington, and then I thought of, what about Vera Harrington, Bea McFarland, Fanny Mantell, and Miriam Prisk? All the mothers that have been around for...
And Vera's 101.
Is she 101? That was what I was wondering.
Is she 101 yet?
Yeah, she turned 101 in October.
Oh, my goodness.
And Bea McFarland's in her 90s. Fanny, probably getting there.
In her 90s.
Miriam,
2003.
okay.
Okay.
Dowlings, both of them.
Dowley.
Dudley.
Yeah.
So,
What do people think?
Who was the
I
other-
really don't have an opinion
I said
on the
Vera.
subject.
just Vera, and Miriam Prisk.
No,
I mean,
and so you just had those.
That's what
You sort of did maybe the matriarchs of the town kind of thing.
I mean,
as a
some of
group.
them have passed on, but those women are still, they've been here a long time, and I just think, Bea McFarland actually has contributed a great deal.
Oh, absolutely.
Herself, but...
And I've got a great picture of Bea with our new railing. She's one of the first ones to.
But I also would just... what do you think about Vera?
when do we have to have the dedication done, Pat?
I thought that was one of those that was soon. Dedication January 8th is what you put on here now.
Very good.
It says reports, budgets, warnings, pictures, etc. But
We can't have the
don't
warning,
really
we can't have the warning ready by the 8th.
Well, we don't really have to have the pictures then, but they want me to get all the proof, everything ready by January 22nd.
They can't do
Okay.
that. We can have articles coming in for the warning on January 28th.
I thought you said the 24th.
24th?
Finalize.
I think your email said the 24th, I thought. I may be
No, you're
wrong.
right. It's the 28th for but it's the 24th.
Up to the 24th.
28th is when their
But we could have it
petitions
all
for
ready to
officers.
go on
Sure.
the 22nd.
And I would recommend with this, as I did last year, if the select board would be so inclined, I would like to proofread the
Sure.
town report.
Sure.
Just because I can.
I'm inclined.
I
Does
can
anybody have an
type in
objection to
errors.
that?
No, it's good.
Yeah.
Is Vera the oldest living person in the town of Newfane?
In the town of Newfane.
I think
Could we
that's a
try
nice
the
idea.
100-year thing with the 100-year flood?
Oh, listen, she's Vera Harrington.
Use that, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, what, if we're agreed on that, what would I really need is someone to volunteer to write the dedication.
I'll do that. Or
Priscilla will do it.
Yeah,
She
Priscilla.
can call Sandy, sit down with Sandy.
You get a beautiful
and get
picture
what
of
she's
her.
done. I mean, I know she's done a lot for like Heritage Festival and that type of stuff.
Okay.
Our octogenarian.
yeah, and so
I'll let you,
No, you're right.
read it.
What am I saying?
she was just.
I'm gonna, oh.
Yeah,
go ahead.
just one thought that Chris just had is, the 100-year flood. We've got the century, the 100-year. Throw that into. We're into tying things together.
Great, yeah, 100 years.
Down at that end of the table is a tie-in.
All the time.
We're trying.
Very good. Never mind. Okay, that brings
No.
us to old business.
I know.
We probably need to,
They are.
Pat, you and I need to look a little bit into, we keep putting things in new business that really are old business. One piece of old business is the SAM registration that apparently Claire, you have an update on this?
SAM registration is all done, and I have written. It really does have to do with being able to get contractors and it's small business bureau type of thing. So I have put together a file. It's in my file drawer that gives the. We're Newfane Town of. We're a U.S. local government. And I've got the passwords and everything. We can go in and update it. But since I won't be here for 100 years, I want to make sure that somebody else has that. It simply, we had to do it in order to be, get the DUNS number, which we now have, and we also had to have it for the emergency watershed protection.
So you're going to do some mode of getting it
It's all,
into... You're saying you don't want to be the only person with this information, is that
Right.
what I'm hearing?
Yes.
So will you get it to Pat in some way so
Yep.
that she can put it in a safe place?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I
Priscilla?
just remembered something. The dedication is supposed to be top secret.
Yeah.
So
what I was-
anybody, you're all, Gunther? Oh, well,
Leave it off there.
I guess he can't
It's not
modify
supposed to
it.
come out until the annual
I
report
don't-
comes out.
There's nothing you can do
Don't
about it.
think Vera will be watching it.
All right, well, she is.
Might be.
I think she goes to bed early.
Well, let's not keep bringing it up.
Well, it's a little too late.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
oh well.
It's always a secret.
Have it
Well,
on BCTV.
if it's on there, which we just changed our mind, we're not doing anything. We're not dedicating anything to anybody.
But
Okay.
Priscilla, I like
All right.
all of those suggestions.
Right, but we should
Good
not
memory.
talk it up, at least. We can, if somebody sees it, they see it. But if anybody sees this and you're not Vera, don't tell.
Good. good, that's good.
Okay. Unfinished business, there is none. Correspondence. Simply, we have a letter of resignation from Stephen Morse because we didn't vote on the cell towers last meeting. No,
That's
Not
a tree supposition.
not true. Not true.
Could be.
But he
It
did
could be.
resign. He did resign from the Development Review Board, and
What to do with it.
I understand from David Cotton that actually has 2 openings on that board, and he will be making a recommendation to us of who he would like to see appointed.
We have some other new business.
We're already down to correspondence. Yes, go
Well,
ahead.
it's in the,
No, go ahead, Claire. I'm just giving you a hard time.
I know. Hazardous mitigation plan. I talked with Dinah, and we need to get together kind of immediately, if not sooner, because by the 15th of February, we have to have this plan updated. And if we don't have it updated, what did she tell me was the implication of that?
15th of what?
February. I mean,
Okay.
the plan's got to be in place. We need you, Todd, for several different reasons. First, as road foreman, and secondly, as fire chief. We need somebody from the Planning Commission and somebody from the Development Review Board. We need a historian.
Gloria, could I stop you for 1 second? When you say need, do you need? Would you explain a little bit of what need in what sense? You need them to come to a meeting.
We
interview them.
need to work with Dinah to get a meeting going, because she has developed a much more extensive plan than just our emergency plan that we have, and it has to meet FEMA requirements. Because then we wouldn't get money from FEMA if it doesn't. So I've had it uploaded onto the website, the draft, and she has very specific sections of it that have to have input from the Conservation Commission and all of these other people.
How are you going to coordinate this? Just by email to these people?
Well, that's part of why I'm asking in here. I already emailed Bruce Hesselback. He suggested trying to dovetail something on their Conservation Commission, but Dinah's already busy that night, so I'll probably put it back in Dinah's hands to coordinate the meeting, but we've got to meet, and it's got to be pretty soon.
But does everybody really have to be there at the same time, or can they be individually? You could interview the people, or they could, you know what I'm asking?
I guess I would have to go back and look a bit more carefully at those sections to say, could we just meet? I think they really do want to get cross-pollination of ideas.
My only thought is you may have trouble getting them all in the same room at the same time.
So we may be able to do smaller groups.
So,
And Dinah can do evenings, she can also do during the day.
You know what night you'll go to the firehouse. Sounds like you need the emergency management committee there for sure.
Yeah, I've certainly got David Moore.
Well, the rest of them are on it too.
Can you,
Well, Dave can get a hold of it.
so
Just tell
Greg?
Dave and then he'll get a hold of us.
Okay.
Because we're the ones that drafted that.
yeah, it really sounds like, Gloria, you really should coordinate with Todd as sort of the starting point of this, and then if you guys could kind of figure out who needs to be there, and whoever you're going to miss, how you're going to catch them up
Yeah.
with Don. Great, that is very important.
I just thought about
Okay,
something.
anything else? Okay, I'm going to move on. The Wyndham Solid Waste, you just have letters from them about how they do business. You can review it
Mm-hmm.
if you will. Heroes Coal, I don't know if I have that letter. I see it
There
on.
is something that
Is it
Maureen
in-
put in for you guys to sign.
From Barrows Coal.
Yeah.
I don't know what this is. It's not one of these things?
It's
Not
just
that-
a one page. It's
I haven't seen it.
well, let me, it's not right there.
Yeah, can I go
What-
on
what
and
it
we'll
is-
come back?
Yeah, yeah, let's
Well,
do that.
explain what it is first, and then you'll find the actual document.
It's just something saying what our number is, and just to get us registered with them. I don't even think that we're not even
What do we mean
using
by-
them, I don't believe.
Yeah,
We are using them?
they're,
All of these will fuel gas and
Oh,
he's built the
okay,
truck.
okay.
And actually, we used to curl it here, so she puts those barrels here, remember?
Well, she actually had put Todd's name on it, and then she said, well, maybe it's a select board thing, but it only needs one signature to be returned,
Well,
sent
they
back.
do the Williamsville Hall, town garage, all of these will fuel the gas at the garage. I would assume that they put over here, but
So would it be okay if we just authorize Todd to
Yeah,
sign for the board in terms of what this
Sure.
document is?
Yes.
All right, so I think we need let's just make it a motion to make it official.
I move to have Todd Lawley sign the Barrow Coal document.
Seconded.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Okay, the last is just that we received something from this Testing and Consulting Corporation. This could become relevant in our rebuilding of Lynch Bridge. Because I think they're quality control. I didn't really review it carefully. They're just sending that they have certified technicians. It may be something that we consider when it comes to moving from phase 1 to phase 2 of Lynch Bridge, which is still a ways off, but we certainly should keep them on our list of people who might be resources for this. And Pat, could I ask you just to forward this to Christina so that she is aware of this letter from us? I don't know if it's relevant to that, but with regard to any kind of testing that we might have to do. That concludes our agenda, as far as I know. Are there any items that we have not discussed or any communication that has not yet been noted? Hearing none, we will now move to pay orders. And it's only 8:35. I'm in a state of shock.